So this past Sunday in Israel, led by the hostage families and their supporters, you may have seen that a general strike was held far and wide across the country, which aimed to send a clear message: halt the war and return our captives. Protesters, Israelis of all backgrounds, gathered at junctions throughout the land, from Ra'anana to Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. Hundreds of local authorities, universities, businesses, tech, startups, and others announced that they would either participate or allow their employees to take the day off to participate if they so wished. The Histadrut, the Central Labor Union, said that whilst it would not formally take part, their chief, Arnon Bar David, visited Hostages Square in Tel Aviv and delivered a message of solidarity. Even the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, spoke in the square, saying that everyone there was united in the desire to bring all the hostages home as soon as possible. North to south, east to west, from highways to outside the homes of government ministers, it's estimated that more than 1 million Israelis joined the strike, half of them in Tel Aviv alone, in the Tel Aviv area. It was unprecedented in its scope and scale in Israel, and I pondered that there were, in fact, several similarities between these strikes and tonight, the Shabbat. This is because, as Rabbi Splansky mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Rabbi Plaut of blessed memory once wrote of Shabbat as protest. And this is the initial idea that I became intrigued by, that became the spark. If Shabbat is to have significance, Rabbi Plaut writes, it must counter one of our society's greatest curses, unrest. Unrest because we frequently live without a goal, and unrest because we are frequently involved in competition without end. This is quoting Rabbi Plaut, and he continues, I view Shabbat as potentially an enormous relief from and protest against the basic causes of unrest. Once a week, it provides us with an opportunity to address ourselves to the meaning of human existence rather than the struggle for survival, to persons rather than to things, to creation and our part in it, to society and its needs, to ourselves as individuals, and yet as social beings. In other words, Rabbi Plaut would consider the Shabbat to have had its desired effect, to have been successful, if only our visions were simply enlarged, if our sense of unrest is even slightly diminished, and if we've gained some new perspective on life. Plaut terms this purposeful uselessness, as we come to understand that sometimes, once a week, doing nothing can be significant. Allowing ourselves to be creatures of being and not only doing, to sit in the blessed quiet but be open to the world for just one day, can be just as productive and just as important. We are thus enabled, as Plaut writes, to live in that elevated state of consciousness, imagination, through the freedom that Shabbat grants us to contemplate and search our souls for who we are and where we want to go. But we're still left with our central question, which is, what do Shabbat and the strike have in common? We can turn for possible answers to our Torah portion for this week, Re'eh. In Re'eh, Moses begins by recounting God's instructions to the Israelites in their desert wanderings as they stood between the feet of Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, and reminds them, Re'eh anochi noten lifneichem hayom bracha uklala. See, I have set before you on this day blessing and curse. Subsequently, a clear dichotomy is laid out. The Israelites will receive blessings if they obey God's mitzvot, God's sacred commandments, and curses if they do not. The medieval philosopher and physician Sforno teaches from this that blessing and curse can mean that there is no compromise when laid out in such two opposite ways, and that only one path can be traveled. In a similar vein, the Plaut commentary notes that, through the statement, Noten lifneichem, I have set before you, our free and individual choice to follow either of these tracks is affirmed. Reflecting on this recent major strike, what is remarkable to me is that it would be so easy for Israelis and for us as their brothers and sisters in the diaspora to be dragged down, to be tempted by the road less traveled, to be angry and bitter. Yet this past Sunday showed that they can take the essence of what Rabbi Plaut taught us that Shabbat rest can truly be, a time and space to act with vision, with perspective, with purpose, and with imagination. Therefore, like our sages and scholars before us, they understood that fighting for what is right is something that we actively need to choose in and something that we have to actively build every day. In Re'eh, in seeing, in heeding this wisdom, we are better able to work towards a singular united goal, free from the bounds of the everyday. We saw this in Israel through, to paraphrase the words of Israeli writer and social media influencer Chen Mazig, the sound, the energy, the unignorable cry of an entire nation who have an urgent and simple demand, a united purpose, to return the hostages and to end the war. So as we conclude, it is perhaps no coincidence after all that the word Shabbat and the word for strike in Hebrew, shvita, share the same root, shin bet tav, which translates as to cease or to stop. Both the Shabbat and the shvita are therefore a message to break with normal life, to revel in the pause and the disruption to our regular routines until something wrong becomes right again. It's our opportunity, in fact, to find rest among the unrest, intentionally and imaginatively. Like our ancestors before us, when we have these blessings and curses set before us, it helps us to realize that perhaps it's not really a choice. We are compelled to choose in goodness and in blessing. May we be blessed to see our hostages return soon. May we be blessed to see better, more peaceful days. And may we be blessed with a rest that is not purposefully useless, but useful purposefully. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.